A viewer recently wrote, "Why would you put your family through extreme frugality when you could easily make this money by working 15 to 20 hours in a week and have a good life with it?" Our response, coming up next. Hi, I'm Hope.
And I'm Larry.
From Under the Median. We raised our 4 sons debt-free, including paying cash for our home when at the time our income averaged under $40,000 a year. We just completed a 3-part series on extreme frugality that gave you over 60 tips and strategies for saving money fast when you have a great big goal. Many of you were so kind to leave some great comments and some feedback in the comments section, and we did get some questions. So some of you asked some terrific questions, and we are going to take this video and we are going to answer the questions that you asked us about extreme frugality. Now you'll notice I started out with a startling statement. All right, so none of us, including Larry and I, are going to ditz on the person who left this comment. We're going to take it as an honest question and we are going to answer it honestly. So the question basically is why did I not go back to work if we were really that strapped for cash and trying to save for this goal?
When Hope became pregnant with James, our firstborn, it was decided at that time that she would stay home. We felt that that was ideal, both for raising a family and for nurturing them. So that became a point that we both agreed on together, that we would go that lifestyle.
Now, let us say at the very beginning here, you are more than welcome to disagree with that decision that we made. This is not sort of a combative question of whether women should or should not be in the paid workforce. We actually don't have any problem with mothers working outside the home if that's what works for your family. But the truth is, what worked well for us was for me to be at home with the children. You have to understand that we spaced our family way out. So the age difference between our eldest and our youngest son is 12 years. So that means that I had an infant, a toddler, or a preschooler in the house for 17 years. So that in and of itself explains why there was that abnormally long period of time in which I did not formally work outside of the home. Now you notice I said formally. In my life, before I became a mom, I worked in broadcasting. So what that did was give me a skill set that allowed me to take on freelance voiceover projects periodically, for which I was actually really well paid. So although those projects didn't come around like every month or even every week, they did periodically appear, and there was an opportunity for me to help supplement our income. So I did do that even though I was at home. Now, the other thing that I did was I had like a series of opportunities to barter my skills in order to receive things that we needed. And so for about 10 years, I actually bartered with a local organic farm group and gave them my time, and they paid me in organic produce. So that in and of itself helped to keep our food bill abnormally low, where it would have been probably much, much higher. So there were things that I did do. Now, the other factor that we haven't really talked a lot about is the fact that we home educated our children. So those of you who asked, well, why didn't you just go back to work after the kids went to school? Because when the kids went to school, the trek from the breakfast table to the school table was like 5 feet. So yeah, my work did not end when the kids went to school. It began when the kids went to school.
The other factor that came into play was actually an answer from God. I was working in broadcasting as well. I worked at a local PBS station, but I wasn't making a great deal of money doing it. Our 2 incomes were okay. We did okay on the 2 incomes, but when Hope came home, we were going to be really strapped. Well, at about that same time, before James was born, God opened the doors at another place of business, a multimedia place, for me to get a job, and I got a substantial raise. It wasn't quite as much as what Hope was bringing in, but it was enough that Hope could stay home and that we wouldn't be strapped for cash.
So we hope that adequately answers that question about why I chose not to go back into the workforce. The next question that was asked was, did you pay $30,000 for your home? Now, people ask that question because our goal was to save $30,000. And the answer is no. The $30,000 was the difference between the value of our first home, what we had already accumulated in savings to put toward a second home, and how much we thought we were going to have to pay for our second home. So there was a gap there between our savings and the home price of $30,000, and that's where the $30,000 came from.
Yeah, let me just say on a side note that we actually paid $38,000 for our first home, but that was in 1992, and homes were quite a bit less then. We also live in the Midwest, where it's much cheaper. Housing costs are lower, and we're very blessed to live in an area that's more affordable. So if you live in a large metropolitan area, you're going to pay quite a bit more, even for a starter home.
And even back then, $38,000 was a very low price for a home. We got it for that because it was an estate and it was a fixer-upper.
Yeah, yes. Nothing had been done to it. It was a 1930 home. It had no improvements except for maybe some vinyl siding, but that was about it.
That was it. So, other than that, you walked in and it was just like 1930.
Everything. Bathroom,
the toilet,
electrical, everything was original. So,
yeah.
So we did a lot of work on it over the years, 18 years that we lived there. So the house that we bought, that we saved cash for, is actually quite a bit more than that. And it's in a real nice area. It's a brick home, 3-bedroom. The boys while they were all living here, they each shared a bedroom, and then Hope and I share the third one. It has a kitchen upstairs, a kitchen downstairs. It's a finished walkout basement. So basically, it's a 2-story home, better than double the size of our original home.
Now, if you would like for us to delve a little deeper into exactly what kind of research we did to figure out how much home we could afford, the areas we would look in, exactly what our budget was, how we were going to reach our goals, how to set those goals, then just leave a talk about homes in the comments section, and we'll know that you would like us to do a video that really delves a little deeper into that process and gives you all the nuts and bolts about how we made that choice, that decision, and that goal. So just let us know in the comments section.
Another question came up. Somebody wanted to know, how old were we when we were mortgage free? So how old were we?
Well, I was 33.
And I was 40. So we were, we'd been married a while before we did this. It took some time.
Now, that was when we paid off the mortgage on the first home. How old were we when we bought this home for cash?
Well, that would be 10 years ago. So I would have been 53.
And I would have been
46.
46.
Wow.
It's amazing how long it took us to do that math. That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
All right. Next question. Do you believe in having a mortgage?
Yes. We took out a 15-year mortgage on our first home. But we also, as we've mentioned, we paid it off in 5 years. We also bought under the limits that the bank set, and that helped us to pay it off fast and live within our limits. That gave us a lot of breathing room by not going to that full limit. You got to be careful about that. What a bank will loan you, what you can really afford, will be two different things.
Now, let us also say that had we not reached our goal, had we not saved $30,000, we would have taken out a mortgage on this home. The goal was to save that amount of money, and part of the reason we set the goal was to force ourselves into meeting the goal. Whenever you set a goal, you need to make sure that there's a timeline associated with that goal, because what that did was, oh boy, did that keep us on track and keep us moving forward. But had we not reached the goal, we would still have moved, we would still have bought a home, and we would have taken out a mortgage on this home. We didn't have to.
Yeah, and I want to add too, when we did this, it was difficult. I'm not saying this was easy. This was a hard decision. It meant we couldn't do a lot of the things that we wanted to do. But our ultimate goal in getting into this home was worth it.
So the next question is, if we were willing to take out a mortgage, why in the world do we put ourselves through 20 months of extreme frugality to save $30,000 to pay cash for the house? The reason is simple. We had been completely debt-free, including owning our home for 12 years. And we got really, really accustomed to not having a house payment. And we really understood at a very deep level that on our income, the best course of action was not only to be debt-free, but to stay debt-free.
Remember, if you do the math on your mortgage, let's take the price that you paid for your house and multiply all those payments over, let's say, 30 years, you're going to have paid a lot. Now, we did the math on our house, our first house. We paid $38,000 for it. Had we paid it off in 15 years, it came out to about $111,000 is what we would have paid for that house with the bank interest added onto it. So you do save a lot of money. And all that money that you save by not having a mortgage can go towards your next home in savings.
The final thing we want you to understand before we move forward to the next question is there are no perfect decisions. Were there pros and cons to every decision that we made along the way? Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
But you always have to look at the big picture and say, if I make this decision, not only what impact is it going to have on our finances, but what impact is it going to have on our family? What impact is it going to have on our ability to give back into our community with our time rather than our finances? What impact is this going to have on future goals and the way that we really envision our family working best? Because there's pros and cons to each of those, and you cannot just look at finances. Even though we talk to you about finances every week, life is about more than finances, and your decisions impact other areas than finances.
Yeah.
All right, next question is, how old are our boys now?
Well, we have 4 boys. I think we've mentioned that. The oldest is 24, and the next is 22. Those 2 boys are living on their own. They have an apartment, and they're working at the same place. Isn't that awesome? The next pair that we had, there's a little gap, 16 and 12. The 16-year-old works, and he's working on getting his driver's license right now. And the 12-year-old they're basically best buddies. And the 2 pairs are best buddies. The oldest 2 and the youngest 2. They're really best friends. So that worked out really well.
All right, the next question. The next question is, Larry, do you still make $40,000 a year?
No. That was 10 years ago when we were saving up for this house. Now, I'm still under the same employment. I've gotten some raises since then. I also work overtime. We get some bonuses once in a while. So the income has kind of gone up, I would say, pretty even with inflation. So do we make a lot more money? Not really, but I do make more than $40,000.
The next question is, why on our videos do we frequently begin with the phrase, "Hope does this"?
Well, the simple answer is one of the things that I prayed for in a wife was someone that could handle finances. And when Hope came along, one of the things that she got really good at was her handling of her own personal finances. So she brought that expertise into our marriage. And, I have expertise in some other areas. This is her area of expertise. So I let her handle the finances. Now, we talk things over and we work things out mutually. But she is the primary manager of the finances.
So essentially, I am the number cruncher, and that's why he often says that. But it's not because we are not mutually making these decisions.
No, we plan together. And frankly, I just adore the way that she's able to put everything together, put all the categories together in the budget, and handle it. She does a fantastic job.
Okay, next question. Fred asked us, do you buy organic food? I eat organic, and that makes my grocery bill more expensive, but I'm still trying to find ways to save on groceries. Now, I'm going to answer that one because I am the food lady. So the answer, Fred, is we get as much organic as possible. Our percentage of organic food goes up dramatically in the summer months when we can visit local farmers markets. And we are also members, longtime members of a CSA, which stands for Community Supported Agriculture. So we support our local farmers as much as possible by buying organic produce from them during the growing months. But as we mentioned, we are in the Midwest, which means that we have at least 5 months without a growing season. And so during that 5 months, during the late fall and winter and early spring, there's a greater percentage of our diet that is comprised of food that is not organic. But my tips to you would be visit your local farmers market and join a community supported agriculture group, because you can get such amazing deals on food at those places. And not only that, which we love, you are supporting small local farms. Next question is, what kind of cars do you have? And that's definitely Larry's arena, not mine.
Well, we drive a 2011 Nissan Leaf. That's an all-electric car. And the other car is a 2014 Prius. Now, we've downsized from what we used to buy. Before those cars, we had all 6 of us riding in our vehicles, and we needed more passenger room. So we had a full-size car. It was a Mercury, full-size, and we had a minivan. And we used those cars for our trips and different things that we did where we had transportation for the whole family. Since the older 2 boys have moved out, we only have 4 riding in the other cars. So I decided that I wanted to get our gas bill down. We were paying, would you say we were paying $160 a month in gas? And so we got our gas bill down to $20 a month because the Prius just sips gas and the other car doesn't use gas. So we knocked that way down. That was the idea with the 2 smaller cars.
Do you ever use credit cards?
Well, we have in the past. We used to have a Discover card, and it allowed for a cash back incentive. We just decided it wasn't convenient to use the card because, frankly, we hated mailing in that payment every month. It was just another thing you had to keep track of. So we eliminated the credit cards and went down to debit cards. So we actually have 2 debit cards each, to one bank and one's a credit union. They're much easier to handle. The money's automatically deducted from your account, and you have to have the money in there in order to spend it. So there's no temptation to spend money that we don't have.
Now, remember, we just told you that there's no easy answers to a lot of these questions, and there's no right and necessarily any wrong. Credit cards are a little bit like that. We are not super firm on never ever have a credit card because we really do recognize, and we did a lot of research into the pros and the cons of credit cards versus debit cards. So we're aware of what those issues are, and for us, it just went a little further onto the side of debit cards rather than credit cards. But several of you have commented that you use credit cards responsibly, you pay it off in full every month. And you know what? If that's the case and you're really living within your means and staying within your budget,
no problem.
we say go for it, then that isn't a problem. However, if you're deeply in credit card debt, then that is where the rubber meets the road, and that's an issue that you absolutely need to deal with. And that's where our stance on credit cards kind of comes down.
Another viewer asked us, Hope, how do we decide on a goal?
That is a great question. And I'm going to tell you right now that actually, as soon as we get done making this video, we are going to produce 2 more videos later this afternoon. And it's going to be a 2-part series on setting goals and how you set up your budget for 2021. 2020 has been an absolutely crazy year. So we're going to take you behind the scenes and show you a little bit about our personal budget, our personal goals, and how we sort of evaluate at the end of the year how we did and how we want to move forward. And then we're also going to tell you about 3 specific kinds of goals that everyone should have, how you set those goals and make sure that you are able to reach those goals. So that's the series that's coming up after this in the next 2 weeks. So if you're not a subscriber, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell so you'll receive notifications as soon as we drop our next video. We always do that on Mondays. So to give you a short and concise answer right now, though, is that we look at exactly how we have done our current goals, evaluate that, look at our finances, and then we always try to look forward into the future. And that really is the key to setting goals. You want to look down the line because people look very myopically at just where they're at and they don't look forward, and that's where part of the problem comes in. So we usually set a time frame. We look at 18 months in the future. We look at about 3 to 4 years in the future, and then we look at 5+ years. So we literally write those down on a piece of paper and we brainstorm together all of the things we may have to spend money on in those time frames, and then we use that list in order to set our goals.
And if you missed our 3-part series on extreme frugality, Hope will put a link to that in the left side of this screen. And it's set up as a playlist so you won't miss our 65 some odd tips on how to live frugally.